The star, shadow work, hope and inner alchemy. There's something deeply humbling about the star. After the chaos of the tower, this card arrives not with thunder, but with silence. A woman, naked, kneels by the water, pouring from 2 jars. It's not just a beautiful image. It's a profound message about healing after destruction. The water she pours isn't wasted. It returns to the earth and flows into the unconscious. This is a ritual of rebirth, like when you finally cry after holding it in for too long, and somehow that tear feels like a beginning. That's the star. The moment you realize your suffering didn't destroy you, it transformed you. Symbolically, her nudity is more than physical vulnerability. It's psychological truth. No persona, no mask, just essence. She connects heaven and earth with 1 foot in the water, the unconscious, and 1 on land, the physical world. That's no coincidence. It's the tarot reminding you. Integration is everything. You can't be whole by cutting off the irrational. And isn't that what we try to do? Numb ourselves to the ache, reject dreams, run from the soul's voice. The star shows us how to stop running. And look at those stars above her, 8 in total. The large one represents guidance, like the North Star for sailors lost at sea. The smaller ones echo the 7 chakras, pointing to spiritual evolution. This isn't just hope in a Hallmark card sense. It's radical self-awareness. It's the kind of hope that comes after everything fell apart, and you still hear a whisper inside saying, "You're not done yet." That whisper? It's psychic energy, waiting for you to listen. What makes the star timeless is that she doesn't offer solutions, she offers reflection. And that's harder, because when we're hurt, we crave action, not stillness. But healing, like water, moves on its own time. Take a walk in nature without headphones sometime. Notice how the sky doesn't rush to change color. That star energy, cosmic rhythm, still and certain. She's not telling you what to do. She's asking you to feel again. And just like that, the star opens a door. But what lies beyond isn't just stars and symbolism. It's something far deeper, lodged in the psyche itself, where ancient archetypes, dreams, and unconscious images live. What if that woman wasn't just a symbol, but a mirror of your soul, trying to speak through the language of myth? Psychological interpretation and the Jungian perspective. Carl Jung would have adored the star. To him, this card radiates anima energy, an image of the soul itself. The naked woman isn't just a random figure. She's an archetype, a psychic reality surfacing from the depths of the unconscious. She embodies that inner feminine presence which, in men, often appears in dreams as a mysterious guide, and in women, mirrors the shadow or unintegrated parts of the self. Jung called this process individuation, the journey of integrating these hidden aspects into conscious life. The star reminds us, healing isn't linear. It's circular like the rhythm of the psyche. You've probably encountered her before without realizing it. That one dream that lingered for days with a woman by the ocean. Or that unexplainable yearning you felt while watching a movie with archetypal undertones. The psyche speaks through images, and Jung believed active imagination was the tool to listen. The star offers a visual meditation, pouring water into the pool of the unconscious, inviting you to do the same. Want to try it? Sketch your dream symbols. Give voice to a recurring image. You'll be amazed what stirs beneath the surface. Now here's the twist. The psyche doesn't hand over its treasures for free. You've got to show up with humility, curiosity, and patience. Jung taught that our biggest wounds are doorways to the unconscious, and the star echoes that. After the trauma of the tower, you don't build a wall. You sit by the river. You pour your inner water, your grief, your awe, your uncertainty, back into the greater current. This act, symbolic yet potent, is a ritual of the soul. And what's that reflection in the water? Not just your face, but the forgotten parts of you, childhood longings, rejected dreams, even the buried rage you've denied. Jungian psychology doesn't ask you to fix them. It asks you to welcome them. And when you do, something alchemical happens. You begin to shift. You realize you're more than your ego, more than your persona. The star is that moment of realization. Of course, this journey inward doesn't end here. Once we catch a glimpse of the anima, or the shadow, there's another mystery waiting. A deeper layer of meaning lies in how these images connect with alchemical truth, where transformation takes on a whole new dimension. Alchemical context and the great work. In alchemy, there's a secret every true seeker learns. Nothing transforms without fire. The star might look serene, but she stands in the aftermath of inner combustion. That's the link to the great work, the magnum opus. Alchemy isn't about turning lead into gold in a lab. It's about turning inner darkness into spiritual light. The star card depicts the albedo phase, where, after the nigredo of the tower, we enter purification. Water washes away the soot of suffering, and the soul begins to shimmer with clarity again. Carl Jung spent years decoding alchemical texts, not for chemistry but for psyche. He saw alchemy as a perfect mirror for individuation. The alchemist's furnace? That's our suffering. The dissolving lead? Our rigid egos. And the result? A soul reborn, refined by confrontation with its shadow. The woman in the star performs this work with grace. She doesn't force it. She trusts the process, pour, breathe, wait. There's power in patience, and modern life rarely teaches that. Want a modern application? Think of journaling as your flask, your sacred vessel. The ink is your symbolic water. Each sentence you write purifies and organizes unconscious material. Or try walking meditations, where every step is an alchemical distillation. Feel the earth under your feet. Imagine releasing mental toxins with every breath. Alchemy isn't mystical nonsense. It's embodied psychology wrapped in metaphor. The jars she holds are no ordinary tools. They represent the dual forces within, the conscious and unconscious, spirit and matter. Like the solve et coagula of Hermetic tradition, one hand pours into the land materialization, the other into the water dissolution. She's performing the ultimate spiritual ritual in broad daylight. That's the paradox of alchemy. What was once hidden is now revealed, but only to those who can see symbolically. And as the waters mix and the stars glimmer above her, a question arises, not just about purification, but about union. Can these opposing forces within truly be harmonized? Or is the real mystery how we learn to hold the tension between them without breaking? Duality and the integration of opposites. The star whispers a truth many avoid. Healing doesn't come from choosing sides, it comes from holding opposites. Just look at her, one foot on the ground, one in the water. One jar pouring into the unconscious, the other nourishing the earth. She's not picking between them. She's harmonizing. That's what Jung meant when he talked about transcendent function, when two opposing elements meet in the psyche and don't cancel each other out, but create something new. It's not compromise. It's integration. You've probably felt this tension before, being torn between reason and feeling, ambition and stillness, independence and connection. Most people try to eliminate one side to feel whole, but the star suggests a better path, conscious union. The trees behind her mirror each other, representing duality. Even the night sky, dark yet filled with light, teaches that contrast is cosmic law. Instead of choosing, learn to listen to both. That's the beginning of true self-awareness. The feminine and masculine energies within us are always in dialogue. The star radiates sacred feminine qualities, receptivity, nurturing, reflection, but she doesn't reject the masculine. She integrates it silently. That's the jar pouring onto solid ground, the action, the material, the forward motion. The other jar pouring into water represents the fluid, intuitive, emotional self. Try this. Next time you're journaling, write from both voices. Let your inner critic speak, then your inner child. You'll see the dualities come alive. This card invites us to stop splitting ourselves in half. You're not just the logical one or the creative one. You're both, and more. Integration means you can feel pain and still be powerful. Be spiritual without losing your fire. Be grounded and visionary. The star gives us permission to stop reducing ourselves to one trait, one role, one label. Real wholeness embraces contradictions and learns to dance with them. And just when that inner dance begins to feel like a sacred rhythm, your eyes drift upward again to the stars. Why do they shine? What are they guiding us toward? Maybe the answer lies not in their brightness, but in their position, timeless beacons lighting the architecture of destiny. Symbolic interpretation of celestial bodies and stars. Stars have always held our gaze, not because they're bright, but because they seem to know. In the star card, they're not just decorations in the sky. They're ancient symbols of destiny, guidance, and inner orientation. The central 8-pointed star shines like a compass rose, a celestial nod to direction and clarity. But unlike the blinding force of the tower's lightning, these stars whisper rather than scream. They suggest, they hint, they shimmer just enough to awaken curiosity without overwhelming the ego. Think about it. When you're lost, really lost, emotionally or spiritually, what do you look for? A spotlight or a sign? The stars in this card don't tell you what to do. They invite reflection. They work the way dreams do, archetypally, symbolically, just out of reach of logic, but deeply in tune with the psyche. In astrology, a single star can influence entire cycles of your life. In the tarot, these stars align you not with fate alone, but with your soul's orientation toward truth. Jung believed that archetypes are the stars within us, unconscious patterns guiding our growth. Just as sailors once navigated oceans by constellations, the psyche finds its way through the dark night by these inner stars. Meditation, dream journaling, even spontaneous creative acts can help reveal which stars are currently active in your life. Ever notice how a symbol keeps showing up? A bird, a number, a color? That's a star trying to speak. Learn its language. But celestial guidance comes with humility. You can't force the sky to change. You can only look up. And that, right there, is the star's greatest lesson. Surrender to something greater. Not blind submission, but conscious alignment. The ego wants control. The soul wants resonance. The star places you under the stars not as their ruler, but their witness, reminding you that there's order even in chaos, light even in shadow. And in that quiet, starlit realization, something ancient stirs, the memory of nature herself, the divine feminine whispering from the roots, reminding you that the stars above and the earth below were never separate to begin with. The role of the divine feminine and nature. There's a reason the star shows a woman and not a man. This isn't just about gender. It's about the archetype of the divine feminine. She represents something deeper than nurturing or gentleness. She is intuition, flow, humility, and healing. She doesn't command attention, she radiates presence. Nature doesn't force growth, it allows it. And that's exactly what the woman in the star is doing. She's not fixing anything. She's holding space for transformation. That's power, not passivity. This divine feminine force is grounded in earth, yet guided by stars. She reflects the same intelligence you see in trees turning towards sunlight or rivers carving through stone, effortless yet unstoppable. That's how healing often feels when we stop resisting. She's not chasing answers. She's embodying trust. When you sit quietly with your pain, without trying to label or escape it, you're moving in the current of this archetype. She's the antidote to the ego's frantic noise. Jung saw the feminine as a gateway to the unconscious, a path back to wholeness. The ego-driven personas from the tower are gone now. What remains is the soul, stripped bare, resting in nature's lap. That black bird perched nearby, a messenger of mystery. The twin trees behind her, guardians of balance. Every symbol around her sings with sacred meaning. And you don't need to analyze them all, just let them speak. Go walk barefoot on grass. Listen to a river. Journal with no agenda. Let the natural world mirror your internal one. We often equate doing nothing with laziness. But the star shows us that stillness is active, alive, and transformative. True strength isn't loud, it's steady. Just as the moon pulls the tides, the divine feminine moves in rhythms often missed by the rational mind. She asks for receptivity, not reaction. She invites you to soften, not shatter. And in that softening, your soul begins to remember itself. And once that memory returns, we start to realize we've been part of a larger cosmos all along. The myths, the stars, the astrological maps, they aren't external curiosities. They're reflections of an inner heritage waiting to be decoded. Astrology, myth, and spiritual heritage. The stars above aren't just lights in the sky. They're ancient stories written in celestial ink. The star card taps into this mythic current, bridging tarot, astrology, and spiritual heritage. Think of the Star of Bethlehem, a cosmic sign that guided the wise men towards something sacred. Or the Greek myths where constellations immortalized heroes and tragedies. These stories aren't dead. They're archetypal maps still alive in our psyches. Each of us walks under stars that whisper echoes of origin, fate, and transformation. Astrology isn't about predicting the future with zodiac memes. At its core, it's a sacred language, charting the dance between heavenly bodies and inner lives. Just like the woman in the star blends earth and water, astrology blends myth and meaning. Your birth chart? That's your cosmic fingerprint. Knowing it isn't about control, it's about awareness. Want to deepen self-understanding? Start with your moon sign. That's where your emotional nature hides. Or explore Chiron, the wounded healer, and see how your pain points reveal paths of service and growth. We inherit more than genes, we inherit symbols. The mythic layer of existence runs beneath the surface like underground rivers, waiting to irrigate our awareness. When you resonate with a myth, it's not random. It's memory. Maybe you've always felt drawn to Artemis, or the constellation Orion, or the story of Inanna descending into the underworld. That pull is part of your personal myth. The star reminds you, you're not separate from the cosmos. You are a myth in motion. And here's the twist. These myths aren't just there to be admired. They're there to be lived. The woman in the star isn't just echoing a divine story. She embodies it. Her ritual act places her in alignment with celestial order. It's not about worshiping the stars. It's about joining their rhythm. Want to begin? Track lunar cycles. Notice how your energy shifts. Or read a myth aloud and reflect on how its themes show up in your life. This is spiritual heritage in action. And once you start seeing symbols as living companions, the next step becomes natural, engaging with them directly. That's where Jung's method of active imagination comes in, where images aren't just interpreted, but dialogued with, bringing the unconscious into the ritual of consciousness. Active imagination, and creative meditation. If you've ever had a conversation with a dream, you've touched the edge of active imagination. Jung didn't invent this method, but he certainly brought it back to life. It's the soul's language in motion, taking an image from the unconscious and letting it speak, evolve, transform. In The Star, the woman doesn't sit passively by the water she pours. That's active imagination in action. She's engaging the unconscious, not just observing it. And you can too. All it takes is the courage to trust what arises inside you without censoring it. Here's how it works. Pick an image, maybe from a dream, a memory, or even a tarot card. Close your eyes. See it clearly. Now interact. Ask the symbol a question. Let it respond. You'll be surprised what comes out when you stop trying to make it make sense. That's the magic of the unconscious. It doesn't follow logic, but it's full of wisdom. You're not making it up. You're tuning in. Think of it like dreaming while awake. Controlled surrender. Guided chaos. The pouring of water in The Star is a metaphor for this inner dialogue. She gives back to the unconscious with reverence, not fear. She doesn't try to dominate it, she collaborates. That's the key to transformation. Most people try to repress what they don't understand. But repression blocks evolution. Creative meditation and active imagination do the opposite. They invite mystery to speak. And when it does, it often reveals emotional truths that words never could. Try it next time you're stuck in a loop of overthinking. Instead of journaling facts, journal symbols. Draw the feeling instead of explaining it. Ask your fear what it wants. Let your inner critic write a letter, and then write one back. These simple acts bypass the ego and open a channel to deeper knowing. Suddenly, what felt overwhelming becomes sacred. You're not lost in thought. You're dancing with the unconscious. And the deeper that dance goes, the more the inner landscape begins to organize. What once felt fragmented now starts to take shape. Symbols become maps. Elements begin to align. Which brings us to the next mystery, how the four classical elements within the card mirror the very functions of your psyche. The four elements and psychic functions. The star isn't just mystical poetry, it's a blueprint of your psyche. Every element in the card, earth, water, air, and fire, corresponds to one of the four psychological functions Carl Jung outlined: sensation, feeling, thinking, and intuition. You've used them all, whether you realize it or not. That moment you sensed the tension in a room without a word, that was intuition. When you touched a tree and felt grounded. Sensation. These aren't abstract theories. They're how your consciousness moves through the world. Let's map it out. Water is feeling, fluid, emotional, responsive. It flows, nourishes, and sometimes floods. That's the unconscious at play. Earth is sensation, tangible, reliable, grounding. It's the jar touching the ground, reminding you to stay anchored. Air, though invisible, stirs thought, its movement, logic, structure. And fire? That's intuition. Sudden flashes of insight, the aha, moments you can't trace back to reason. When these four are balanced, your inner world feels whole. When one dominates, you feel off-center. The woman in the star card isn't juggling these elements, she's integrating them. She's not overwhelmed by emotion or overthinking the process. She allows. That's the hidden genius of this card. Want to practice it? Next time you face a dilemma, ask yourself, what am I sensing? What am I feeling? What do I think? What's my gut saying? Each answer will speak from a different element. It's like forming an internal council, your personal tarot spread in motion. Jung believed that psychic health required access to all four functions. Most people over-identify with one and neglect the others. The star helps you see where you're imbalanced. Maybe you live in your head, but fear your feelings. or you rely on gut instincts but ignore the facts. Balancing these isn't about becoming perfect, it's about becoming aware. Awareness opens space for choice, and choice allows transformation. And when all four elements align, they act like gears in a cosmic machine, moving you toward a deeper narrative arc, one that stretches beyond the star alone. Because in the tarot, every card sings in harmony with the ones that came before. And to understand where we are now, we need to look back at the wreckage, the sacrifice, and the higher order emerging from the fall. Contrast with the Tower and other tarot cards. If the star is the soft breath after a storm, the Tower is the thunder that cracked everything open. You can't understand the star's peace without honoring the chaos that came before. The Tower didn't just destroy, it revealed. False beliefs, brittle egos, rigid identities, they all came crashing down. That's not failure. That's freedom. But it hurts. And that pain is what softens you enough to receive the star. No tower, no star. It's that simple. The tarot tells stories, not in isolation but in sequence. Justice confronted us with truth. The lovers showed the pull of duality. Temperance whispered balance. The hanged man demanded surrender. Then came the tower, and now the star arrives. See the arc? It's not linear. It spirals through psyche and soul. Each card strips another illusion. By the time you reach the star, you're not who you were. You're naked, not just literally like the figure, but psychically. Raw, honest, ready. And that nakedness isn't shameful. It's sacred. It's what remains when all costumes burn. The woman in the star isn't rebuilding walls. She's pouring water, tending the ground, listening to the sky. She's aligned with rhythm, not control. That's the reversal the tower prepares you for. Where the tower shocks the system, the star soothes the soul. One breaks, the other begins to mend. This isn't duality, it's polarity. Two forces dancing toward integration. Want to apply this? Reflect on your own tower moments. Times when life unraveled, when you lost jobs, relationships, health, or certainty. Did something quiet emerge afterward? A truth? A peace? A version of you that wasn't built, but discovered? That's the star. And knowing this helps you read life differently. Instead of fearing collapse, you start asking, what is this trying to reveal in me? And once you learn to read collapse as revelation, you begin to walk with a different kind of solitude. Not isolation, but sacred inwardness. A path that no one else can walk for you. A journey written in silence, mystery, and the strange light of inner vision. Mystery, solitude, and the individual path. There's a kind of silence only the soul understands. Not the quiet of an empty room, but the deep hush that comes when you realize no one can walk this path for you. The star embodies that silence. She doesn't seek approval, doesn't need applause. She's alone, but not lonely. That's the paradox. Solitude, in spiritual terms, isn't abandonment. It's initiation. It's the moment you stop looking outward and begin listening inward. And let's be real, most people are terrified of that. Mystery lives in that inward space. Not mystery as confusion, but as sacred unknown. The ancients called it gnosis, the knowledge that can't be taught, only realized. Mystery religions, from Eleusis to Egypt, all carried this thread. Truth is revealed through ritual and inner experience, not dogma. The woman in the star performs this silently. She doesn't explain. She acts. And in that quiet act, truth unfolds. Want to taste that? Try spending one day without distraction, no phone, no input, just you and your breath. You'll meet the mystery faster than you expect. And that solitude carves depth. Carl Jung knew it well. He withdrew to his Ballingen tower to draw, reflect, and let the unconscious speak. He He wasn't escaping. He was incubating. Growth needs silence like seeds need darkness. The star card whispers, it's okay to be in between, to not know, to simply pour and wait. Modern culture hates that. It wants speed, answers, hacks. But real transformation doesn't come from hacks. It comes from honoring the unknown. Some of the greatest shifts in life come not with fanfare, but in quiet, personal realizations. That walk where you suddenly felt peace for no reason. That journal entry that cracked you open. That morning you cried and didn't try to stop it. These aren't small things. They're sacred. They're stars appearing in your inner night. And the more you notice them, the more you start trusting them. And as that trust grows, another forgotten faculty begins to wake up. Not your logic, not even your feeling, but your imagination. Not the childish kind, but the sacred, visionary force that bridges this solitary path with something truly divine. Imagination as a bridge to the divine. You've been taught that imagination is child's play, fantasy, illusion, escape. But that's a lie. Imagination is sacred. It's the soul's language, the mind's paintbrush, the bridge between the finite and the infinite. The star doesn't just symbolize this, she lives it. Her actions are symbolic, yes, but they also ripple across realms. In Jungian terms, imagination isn't passive, it's a divine function. The woman pouring water isn't daydreaming. She's creating. And so are you, every time you dare to imagine something more aligned than what you've been told. This isn't about escapism. It's about vision. True imagination doesn't take you out of reality. It expands your perception of it. That's why the ancients used myth, art, and symbols to engage the divine. It wasn't decorative, it was participatory. Every ritual, every glyph, every poetic phrase was a vessel for spiritual light. So when you engage your imagination, whether in meditation, writing, dance, or dream work, you're not being creative. You're tuning into archetypal currents that shape destiny. But here's the catch. Imagination requires humility. You can't force it. You have to listen. Just like the star listens to the stars above and the earth below, your inner self listens for what wants to be born, not what your ego demands. Want to practice? Sit with an image that stirs you, a tarot card, a dream, even a song lyric. Don't analyze. Converse. Ask it why it came. Ask it what it wants. That's the art of sacred imagination, curiosity without control. And as your relationship with imagination deepens, so does your connection with the divine. You stop seeing God as an external figure and start feeling the divine pulse within you. You recognize that every vision you honor, every intuitive hit you follow is a prayer. The imagination becomes your altar. And from that altar, the soul rises not in dogma, but in dialogue. Not in certainty, but in wonder. And as you stand in that wonder, as your inner vision expands, you begin to notice something unexpected. The parts of yourself you once rejected, your grief, your fear, your flaws, begin to glimmer too. Because now, you're ready to meet them not with resistance, but with reverence. Integration of the shadow and personal growth. Real healing doesn't come from affirmations or vision boards. It comes from sitting face to face with the parts of yourself you'd rather avoid. The star gently leads you into this encounter. She doesn't fight the darkness, she transforms it. And that's where shadow work begins. Jung taught that the shadow isn't evil. It's just the unacknowledged self. The tears you held back, the rage you buried, the need you denied, these are the waters she pours back into the unconscious, not to drown in them, but to alchemize them. You've probably felt it, that wave of sadness with no clear source, that irrational anger, that shame that creeps in late at night. Those aren't flaws, they're fragments of your psyche begging to be seen. And the star reminds you, you don't heal by pushing them away. You heal by including them. Personal growth isn't a climb, it's an integration. It's when you stop splitting yourself into good and bad and start embracing the full, messy, magnificent spectrum of who you are. Try this exercise. Write a letter from your shadow. Let it speak. Don't judge it. Don't correct it. Just listen. You might be shocked at what comes out, but that raw honesty, that's the gold. As Jung said, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. And in the star, that process is visualized with grace. She takes what's been rejected and offers it back to the source. There's something humbling about letting your wounds guide you. It's not weakness, it's courage. When you feel grief, and instead of suppressing it, you let it move through you, that's inner growth. When you forgive a part of yourself you thought you had to punish, that's maturity. When you realize your pain didn't break you, but broke you open, that's transformation. The star doesn't promise ease. She promises authenticity. And once you've touched that authenticity, something unexpected happens. The world begins to feel different. Even trees, birds, stars, things you overlooked, start to speak again. Because now, you're finally listening with a healed heart. And in that listening, new guides begin to emerge, not in textbooks, but in symbols, signs, and the silent wisdom of nature itself. Spiritual guidance through symbols and nature. You don't need a guru on a mountaintop to find spiritual guidance. Sometimes, all it takes is noticing the way a tree leans toward the sun, or how a bird lands exactly when you're deep in thought. The star is filled with these signs. The black bird on the tree, it's not just decoration, it's the soul's messenger, the alchemical raven that signals transformation. The twin jars, they're not about symmetry, they're about reciprocity, the giving and receiving of energy between you and the universe. Nature doesn't use words, it uses symbols. And here's the beauty of it. Once you've done the inner work, these symbols begin to speak. You start seeing the sacred everywhere. Not because the world changed, but because you did. That tree that was once just background noise, now it's a reminder of rootedness. That random feather on the ground, a sign of support. This isn't magical thinking, it's mythic awareness. You've activated symbolic sight, and now the universe can finally reach you in its native tongue. Carl Jung called this the symbolic life, a way of being where you don't just exist, you listen. The world becomes an oracle. Your dreams become scriptures. Even your pain becomes a teacher. Want to practice it? Spend one day in silence, walking in nature, and treat everything you see as a message. Not literally, but mythically. What does that cloud resemble? What's the first thing that catches your eye? These small rituals awaken the part of you that the star embodies, the intuitive, receptive, divinely connected self. And the deeper this connection gets, the more grounded you become. That's the paradox. You're not escaping reality, you're re-entering it with open eyes. Suddenly, everyday life is a field of sacred clues. Washing dishes becomes a ritual. Lighting a candle becomes a dialogue. The inner and outer worlds start to reflect each other like mirrored pools. This is where spirituality stops being abstract and becomes embodied. And from this embodied space, a new life begins, not as a clean slate, but as a conscious weave of all that's been integrated. You carry your shadow, your myth, your imagination, and your truth. But what do you do with all of this? What's the next step once the inner transformation has begun? That's the invitation. That's the calling. And now, it's time to gather everything into one luminous path forward.